to Qingtai. I must sacrifice you, but I love you and I need you.
No!
Here, take her, take the bitch!
Master, you are flesh.
I am. Oh, it worked. Qingtai is appeased.
Now we must satisfy the first sovereign emperor by destroying this.
Not so fast, gentlemen.
Is it too much to ask, Thunder? Kill him for me!
Won't solve anything, Dave. Too many people around here been dropping like flies already, and where's that getting us, huh? Nowhere. Fast. You know what old Jack Burton always says at a time like this?
Who?
Jack Burton. Me. Old Jack always says, what the hell?
Hey, Adrenalheads, welcome back to the show. I'm Mark.
And I'm Jayme.
And I'm Jerry.
And this episode of Adrenaline Cinema Podcast, we are covering, well, this is one of many John Carpenter flicks, but we've already covered these, and Jamie's been on for They Live.
Yes.
And Jerry has been on for The Thing from 1982.
Two great movies.
Yes, two great movies. Now we're going to go to something, we're going to go deep dives into something because Jerry and I thought this would be fun to cover because this is one of the undersung movies that John Carpenter has done. And it was part of a 3-movie deal that he was asked to do. I'm forgetting the name of the movie company, but it was in order for him to get a big budget film. So it was Big Trouble in Little China, which we're covering. They Live, which Jayme and I had covered, as well as Prince of Darkness, so that way you could get a bigger budget film. And this was one of the few movies that was like, everybody goes, huh? Why did you make this movie? Now, mind you, I personally enjoy it because it's so goofy and campy. I just love it for the fact of the Chinese stuff. But today's episode is we're covering Big Trouble in Little China from 1986 and the synopsis, Jerry, if you will.
Yes, Kurt Russell plays hard-boiled truck driver Jack Burton, who gets caught in a bizarre conflict within and underneath San Francisco's Chinatown. An ancient Chinese prince and Chinatown crime lord has kidnapped a beautiful green-eyed woman who is fiancée to Jack's best friend. Jack must help his friend rescue the girl before the evil Lopan uses her to break the ancient curse that keeps him in a fleshless and immortal spirit.
Very fictitious, falls upon the old Chinese lore that's out there. And the synopsis itself is pretty much kind of vague-ish, but gives an idea of what the movie's about. Some people would not like to watch it at times.
Those people would be right.
Yeah, that's why Jamie's here, because she got to watch it, and we suggested it, and we were like, "Hey, watch this," and she was like, "Why did I watch this?"
Yes.
But there are cool people in the movie that we may know, and so Jayme, start us off with the first one.
Kurt Russell, who plays Jack Burton, has been acting for 60 years. Wow, it's a long time. He's done 7 years in Tibet, Devil Takes a Holiday, Christmas Chronicles 1 and 2, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, Deepwater Horizon, Fate of the Furious, Death Proof, Miracle, Dark Blue, Vanilla Sky, Escape from LA, Executive Decision, Stargate, Tombstone, Unlawful Entry, Backdraft, The Thing, Jerry's favorite role, Escape from New York, Strongest Man in the World, and the Computer Wore Tennis Shoes. That one I've not heard of before.
It's a Disney movie. Actually, it's pretty funny. So if you're on Disney Plus, you could actually watch those old Kurt Russell movies that he was in Disney. So the kids.
I might look into that one. That sounds fun. Mm-hmm. And then for TV, he did Gunsmoke and The Fugitive.
Awesome. Jerry, next one.
Now we have Dennis Dunn, who plays Wang Shi. He was in Year of the Dragon, Prince of Darkness, The Last Emperor, 1,000 Pieces of Gold, and he was in the Midnight Caller TV show.
Yep.
I remember that show.
Yeah, same here. I love that show, too. Next up would be Victor Wong, who plays Egg Shen. Victor lived a long life and made a lot of movies over the years. He lived from 1927 to 2001 and has been in a lot of films. And we'll just spotlight a few that we have. So movies that you could see him in was like Year of the Dragon in 1985. Shanghai Surprise, as you recall, was a Madonna movie back in the day. And that was also in 1986. The Golden Child with Eddie Murphy, 1986 as well. The Last Emperor in 1987. John Carpenter's The Prince of Darkness. Tremors, which Daphne and Paik have covered on Run for Your Lives on the Podcast Network in 1991. One of my favorites of his personally is 7 Years in Tibet, 1997 as well. Because, and I think, Jerry, you probably put that in there.
Yeah, because I did that for Tremors because, graboids.
Graboids.
Graboids or snakeoids or whatever we call them. So.
They're graboids, yeah.
Yes.
Jamie?
And last we have James Hong, who played David Lopan, our evil villain. He played Dr. Hong in The Golden Child, Jeff Wong in Wayne's World 2, Blade Runner, and Chi Fu in Mulan. Hong is also best known for playing Daolan Wong on the television series Jackie Chan Adventures, Mr. Ping in the Kung Fu Panda franchise, and Gong Gong in Everything Everywhere All at Once, which was an excellent movie.
Yes, it was.
Actually, all of those were really good movies.
Yeah.
James Hong is like a personal favorite of mine too because I loved him in Blade Runner. It's like I only do eyes. So.
Yeah, same here. Yeah.
Agreed.
Okay, next we have Kim Cattrall, who plays Gracie Law. She was in Porky's, Police Academy, Mannequin, Star Trek VI: The Undiscovered Country, and most recently About My Father, but probably most well known for playing Samantha in Sex and the City on HBO.
Yeah, from 1998 to 2004, very popular. Everybody loves that show, apparently. I only saw a few.
I've never actually watched it.
Nah. Next up is Susie Pei, who plays Miao Yin. She was in Sharky's Machine, 1981, First Blood, 1982. In First Blood, she was an uncredited Vietnamese prostitute. A movie that I liked too back in the day, which was Jakarta in 1988. And she was on a TV show that didn't really go too far, Tattingers, that ran from 1988 to 1989, which was only 6 episodes long. So her career is very short. So apparently she's not involved with film anymore.
Carter Wong, who played Thunder, is mostly known for his various roles with kung fu movies from China that started his career from 1972 and still keeps going. There are way too many movies to list, but other American movies would be Shark Operation, 1988, Sex for Sale, 1993, and Asian Cop High Voltage from 1994.
Yeah.
They sound terrible, but I'm probably going to watch Shark Operation at some point.
Well, they're low budget films, and honestly, if you saw Big Trouble in Little China, everybody who's out there listening, you recognize his face and his physique in all these Asian movies, so you're aware of who he is. I think he was actually in like a Bruce Lee movie or one or two as well.
Next, we have Peter Kwong, who plays Rain. He was in The Golden Child, Gleaming the Cube, Row Your Boat, and Dragon Dynasty, and I only recognized half of those.
Gleaming the Cube?
Christian Slater.
Christian Slater, yep. It's a skateboard movie. And, of course, Golden Child. Next up will be James Pax, who plays Lightning. He was in Nasty Boys 1989, Kinjite, Forbidden Subjects with Charles Bronson in 1989, Bethune, The Making of a Hero in 1990, and The First Emperor in 2006. Apparently, a lot of these actors have been in comparable movies. They've been together because of them being Asian and in Chinese descent, which is very interesting, too, because it could be typecasting or it could just be that they're highly regarded.
Next up, we have Al Leong, Wing Kong, the Hatchet Guy. He's an Asian American actor and stuntman who has picked up a cult following based around his numerous appearances in high voltage action flicks from the mid-1980s. Al nearly always turns up as a bad guy with his lean, muscled physique, incredible agility, and amazing martial arts skills, wispy black hair, and Fu Manchu-style mustache. Best known on screen as Endo, torturing Mel Gibson with electric shocks in Lethal Weapon, as Uli, the chocolate bar stealing terrorist in Die Hard, one of the Wing Kong members in Big Trouble in Little China, as a short Genghis Khan in Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, and Minth, the henchman punching on with Brandon Lee in Blazing Laundry in the climax of Rapid Fire in 1992, made his directorial debut in 2000 by writing and directing the low-budget Daddy Tell Me a Story.
When I saw him, like I've seen, and what you said it was true is like because so many, it's like the face but don't know the name kind of. All right, next we have Donald Lee, who plays Eddie Lee. He's in One Crazy Summer, U.S. Marshals, Memoirs of an Invisible Man, Epoch, and Deep Core.
And last but not least, Kate Burton, who plays Margot. She was in a movie in 2014 called Barefoot, Martyrs in 2015, and Inventing Anna in 2022. TV shows that she's been, obviously, Grey's Anatomy since 2005 and still going. So she's got job security. And Scandal from 2012 to 2018. So she's still been acting.
Yeah, I've seen Scandal the entire way through, but I've never seen Grey's Anatomy.
Me either. Well, I haven't seen Scandal either, though.
Scandal's fairly good.
That's what I've heard.
I've seen Grey's Anatomy, a little bit of Scandal, not much.
Yeah. If you ever watched one of the episodes when they're in their office, the meeting table they have is like this really funky, like a table with like different colored woods all scattered on it. I want that table.
All right. Well, we come to the point in the podcast where general thoughts of the movie, overall thoughts of this particular movie. So we're going to start off with Jayme.
I am in the minority of this group where I did not love this movie. It felt kind of like a fever dream. It's definitely the absolute definition of a bad 80s movie. I don't know that I'd recommend anyone watch it, but maybe now this was my first watching of it was for this podcast. So maybe had I watched it in the 80s, I might have a warmer, fuzzier feeling for it. If you like the Kung Fu movies from back in the day, like the old Bruce Lee movies and stuff, I could see why you would like this movie. And I kind of liked that part of it a bit, but overall, not my favorite movie.
Jerry?
Oh, one thing that describes it for me is it's way over the top. Just outrageous in a lot of places. Like gravity takes a holiday in certain spots. Physics takes a holiday. And Kurt Russell.
Good acting takes a holiday.
And the fights, of course, are great. But Jack playing the what is the Wish.com version of John Wayne, or Jack doing a
yes, that's exactly
John Wayne impersonations.
Well, all the way down to the saddlebags that he puts over his shoulder before he leaves at the end of the movie, if you noticed.
Like, just watch a John Wayne movie. I don't want to watch whatever this was that you were trying to do here.
Kurt Russell, doing this kind of movie. But, well, my thoughts overall, well, I saw this movie when it came out back in 1986. It was one of those things because I'm such a huge John Carpenter fan. Around that same time, we had all three movies that came out within and around the same time. Like I stated before, They Live, Prince of Darkness, Big Trouble in Little China, all because of this production deal that Carpenter had, and me being a huge Fangoria Starlog and fan that it is, and read all those magazines at the comic book shop and buying and following it, I was like, oh, I'll go see it. So I did, and then I think by the time I was in high school, we just finally got cable. So it was on HBO consistently. So I saw it almost every other day when it was on HBO. So me being a fan of Chinese, karate movies, all those kung fu movies back in the day, like the Wu-Tang Clan would always talk about, I was just like, oh, okay. And it's got Kurt Russell. Now, mind you, looking back at it now and rewatching it over the past week or so a couple of times, this movie is definitely dated due to with the neon that's in there and the temple scene,
Yeah.
all the way down to how they objectify the women in the movie itself. On top of that, the bravado of the character of Jack Burton, and what a lummox he is too, because it's so funny. And I think that was my appeal to it. It's like Kurt Russell's walking around this whole movie thinking he's such a great dude. Oh, and he, shoots the gun out of the air and he just knocks himself out.
He only fought what, like 5 people?
Yeah, exactly. If you think about it, it's like there's so many gimmicks and gags, and it's not a movie that you would think that John Carpenter would do. So I just loved it for the nostalgic purpose of the movie itself. It was the 3-movie deal, and that's what I remember. But and the catchphrases are just so cheesy. You just love them. And
random monsters that don't have any explanation.
Exactly. Well, you got to get you have to get your fortune cookie and then open it up, and maybe they'll have something in there about the monster.
They have a woman who over-explains everything going on, and then just random monsters that are not explained. I don't know where she was explaining. She could have popped up and explained them.
Yeah, and apparently it's like this. Well, we'll get into it. I have a few things that we could jokingly talk about regarding this story and how it happens and why. But with that, we're going to move right along into our favorite scenes or scenes that we found of interest and thoughts about within the movie itself, within said scenes. So we'll start off with Jayme. Start with your first point.
The music was perfect for it.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that the music was bad based on my previous statements. But like the 80s synthesizer, it worked really well for this movie.
Yes.
It was a really good sound for this movie.
Yeah, and John Carpenter actually got together with a couple of people and created what's called the Coupe de Villes. And they did the song Big Trouble in Little China for this movie as well. And there's a music video you guys could actually watch on YouTube of that. So I will put that in the notes below, which is pretty funny. So if you have your podcast app open, they'll be in the notes. If you're watching this on YouTube, they'll be in there as well. So that way it's a click away. Jerry?
My first thing is, as we open the movie, we have Jack musing into the ether, doing his, I don't want to say a rant, but just kind of like a diatribe into talking about random things over the air.
Thinking he's so cool.
Yeah, thinking he's so cool.
Yeah. What I like about this, and you'll laugh, and anybody who watches this and plays video games, these were precursors, the characters, if you think of Thunder, Lightning, and who was the other one? I'm forgetting. Rain. They are precursors to Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
So
that's very obvious. Like when they showed up, I was like, oh, Mortal Kombat.
Because Mortal Kombat came out in 1992. It didn't come out in the mid 80s. I remember maybe in video game markets, it was maybe late 80s, for arcade machines.
Right. Yeah.
But this movie predates that. And you think that the whole thing of lightning is for Mortal Kombat. That's what I loved about it. It was those elements. They had the elementals of those particular characters and how over the top they were with their fighting style. I just loved it because of the kung fu within it. And I loved how, somebody used a sword. Somebody used these kind of not sais, but they look like, it looked like a sai, but with a blade in the front that was curved on the fist point. That was from Thunder. And then Rain had his own, he had just his long sword, and Lightning just had literally his lightning going on with this big hat.
Yeah, who had the spinny chicken feet?
Oh,
was that? Didn't one of them have it was like a spinning blade that came out of his hand? They kind of look like chicken feet.
Oh, that was Lightning.
That was Lightning. Okay.
Yeah, because he would and it would spin the blade
from
his hands. But yeah, that was interesting. But those characters really would always drew me to this particular movie. I just love it for that fact alone. So,
Well, I was going to say that the three elements, rain, thunder, and lightning, were one of my favorite parts. Like, they showed up and you're like, oh, okay, this is pretty cool. Those guys are intimidating. They're fun. And, you know, the obvious Mortal Kombat reference, like Raiden was totally built off of them. It was really cool.
Yeah.
But then they end that awesome scene with this magic water that fixes lasers to the eye. The alley I don't know why that really bothered me. He's like, don't look. I looked. Well, here, let's just splash some water in your eyes and you'll be fine. Some dirty, nasty water in your eyes. You'll be fine. You won't get pink eye or any kind of infection.
It's called mid-'80s movies.
Movie magic.
Movie magic, too. Jerry?
One of my favorite things is, again, like I mentioned it before, it was the suspension of gravity. We have like not egg, but Wang and Rain having their duel in the sky when they're jumping at each other. Like,
that was pure Mortal Kombat before Mortal Kombat. It's just literally, it's like, yeah, you could see it. For anybody
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon before Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
Yeah, literally.
This is Wire Fu again. So
yeah, it is Wire Fu. It's pretty much what the Matrix based on.
Well, and then there was another one where he like does a running, like runs up against the wall and kind of like does a
walking,
running across the ceiling and on the arch.
Yep.
That'll never not be cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Pure skill. A lot. I just love the costumes within it. Between Lo Pan, definitely from the elements that were there, like between thunder, lightning, and rain, and then especially with Gracie Law and Miao Yin and how they're dressed in the garb, and it just looks like true traditional Chinese. And we get to see a little bit more of San Francisco that we've never really seen before, the back end, seedy side. So our friend Jason, who lives there, probably has not seen that side of San Francisco. And it's weird how rainy it is. So they must have filmed this during like a really rainy season at the time when it came out. But then again, it is part of the movie itself and the story.
I really liked Nerdy Jack, a.k.a. Henry Swanson, at the brothel. We put our John Wayne to the side for a minute, and he was actually kind of fun. I don't know. He cracked me up like that.
I was told the white tiger.
I really like green eyes.
Which is so funny. That's one of the things that I do enjoy is the whole story about it and how the theory of it, but they kind of twist the theory in the middle of it too, because Miao Yin was picked specifically because she's an Asian Chinese girl with green eyes, which is your unicorn. But now they allow Gracie Law. It's like, hold on, she got green eyes, so I can marry both of them.
Right. Whoa, two people have green eyes. Yes, a white girl has green eyes.
Green eyes. Shocking, right? It's like, oh my God. She Irish? She Asian? I don't think so. But I thought it was like, okay, that this makes it a little bit more humorous in the sense of the story plot and everything. But also with the story of Lo Pan and how he is between worlds. So he has to marry this to appease a god, or two gods, actually. If you think about it, he has to, I think one was a sacrifice and then the other was him marrying the woman. So, and in a sense, he didn't really have to sacrifice. Once he got blood out of one or the other.
Can we talk about how hard it was for him to put that needle in her?
Yeah. And it was such a long freaking needle.
But everybody else, well, needle of love. But every other thing that inserted into another human body went in like it was butter.
Mm-hmm. Maybe he's just really weak.
Or he got one of those big, huge ass knitting needles, and he's trying to, because you know how they're dulled in the front.
It was like he was trying to use a metal straw. Not that they had metal straws back then, but
But it's so humorous in the sense of watching it. That's the only reason why I find it so funny. But Jerry, would you have one?
Yes, I have Egg and Lopan's quick little duel where they had the it's kind of like a video game thing where they have a representative of each of their magics.
Yep.
You know, floating in the sky. It's like, you know, green against purple or whatever there was.
Yep. Yeah, it was almost as they had some sort of avatar for them to play, and you could actually see something that Lopan does with his hands, and it looks like a video game controller with his hands, with his thumbs wiggling.
Interlocking his little fingers, kind of like what I'm doing here. So.
And it was interesting for its time. I really thought it was pretty cool, especially with the smoke, and the neon actually worked for its benefit for that too, for the avatars. I really enjoyed that. The fighting styles that were in there with the Wing Kong, or I forget, and the other gang that was out there. They utilize Chinese gangs, which is pretty cool. And that's really how this whole thing starts. One thing that always boggles my mind is how Jack is able to make a quick turn into an alleyway with that big, huge ass diesel truck.
And sometimes he's awesome at driving it, and sometimes he's terrible at driving it.
And doesn't know where his key is either. You have a spare? Yeah, it's in the... Oh! Got it!
I gotta say, I've done stupid stuff like that, though.
And it's a credit to Kurt Russell as Jack Burton. And I just love the character in a sense of how stupid he is. It's just such a goof. It's like, we gotta find that junction box. You know, that junction box. Oh, him and Wang and having to fake their way to get back in just to find everybody. One thing that I will add, and I'm sure you guys jump onto, are the weird characters that we do get in, like the demons or the monsters that we do get. They're just thrown in there.
No reason. No explanation.
No explanation. They're just there, but...
I mean, I like them. I like those things, but...
The one in the sewer, as they're actually getting down after they went through, of all things, Egg's little bat poles to go down into the sewer. Mm-hmm. And they're walking through the sewer. You see this like fish looking thing with arms grab a guy, and then he just throws a jewel, blows it up. He goes, and you don't come back. He goes, come back from where? Where? They don't say where. You got the hairy ape looking thing that comes out and tries to attack somebody, and it just grabs and it
just
falls.
Yeah. It carried Gracie off. So.
Yeah. And then
they were almost out of there.
And then you have the little ball with the
Guardian.
tongue, with the eye and multiple eyes on its body.
That one was explained at least. That one's actually my last point. That's my favorite one. That's the best CGI of the movie. The tongue was creepy and cool. That one was explained like, oh, it's a guardian. It's a weird floating blob, but it was definitely like the best CGI. It had it was explained. It made sense why it would have a bunch of eyes because it's looking out for stuff. Like that one made sense. The other ones just pop up out of nowhere, no explanation, and then they're gone before the scene's even over. And then they end the damn movie with one. Again, with no explanation.
The gorilla style creature just comes out at the very end behind Jack's truck. Yeah. He's in an attachment part for where you have the hookup for the box. And he just comes out, and you're like,
now, if we had an explanation for it before, like it links onto things, blah, 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 that would make more sense. But it makes no sense. Why is it there?
That's why we need John Carpenter to come out and goes, we could ask him, hey, dude, what was the story?
Yeah. Did something get lost in the cutting room floor? What happened here?
Yeah. Is there a director's cut?
Like, I understand throwing monsters in a movie. I'm all for monsters in a movie, but I would like some context.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if they're going to come back in the last scene.
Yeah. But yeah, there's a bunch of things we could break this down so many ways as far as like things that we love. But Jerry, is there anything else that you have that we haven't covered?
Yeah, I got a couple more. It's like in going with Jack's bravado, after he rescues Gracie and Miao Yin from from their little hypnosis.
Mm-hmm.
So Gracie gives Jack a big kiss, and then he goes to confront Lo Pan, tries to be all smug and smarmy. He's got a big old blob of lipstick on his face.
That was funny. Yeah, and it was the exact like same geisha style.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And then the kicker was the knife toss, the catch and the toss back to Lo Pan.
Again, a knife that goes in without any hesitation, like his rotting zombie head, which maybe his flesh hadn't totally, or his bones hadn't totally congealed or whatever after becoming human again, but can't stick a needle in a tiny little thin wrist, but easily pierce a skull.
And by my understanding, that is very hard to do.
Yes.
Because heads are hard.
Yes, they are. It would take a lot of force in order to put a knife through a skull.
And then when we see Thunder realize that his boss is dead, he gets an inflated ego and well as an inflated body and pops.
That I loved that part.
Oh, the moving and breathing, the steam coming out of his ears, and then he gets huge and then blows up, and it looks like salad in the hallway. It looks like salad was just thrown out there into the hallway.
It probably was just salad. Like salad and like scraps of cotton and everything.
I love that part.
And that does it for my points.
It does it for a lot of my points. I just like find the humor in it. I'm sure all you listeners out there, you have your own points if you watched it or put yourself through it to watch it. If you've never watched it before, like I said before, this will be an actual presentation of this. When you get it, it'll say spoiler review. But if you want to spoil yourself to figure out, it's like, is this that bad? Well, for some people, I would say 90% of people out there would say this movie is bad. Me, I just love it for the base on this nostalgic and that, because it's a John Carpenter movie and it's part of the trilogy of what I watched in that year. And this by far was the most humorous of them, and I just enjoyed it. Like I stated too, that my feeling is it did objectify women, and it's very dated for its time for that. So it's like you realize it after years, and you watch it, and you're like, wow, this is new. Nobody would make this kind of movie now.
For good reason.
Yeah. But it has its gimmicks, though, as far as humor, especially the guy when they're preparing for war and Jack's walking around, bumps into one guy, and the guy just eats the top of the fish head and hands it to him going, hey, you want some? He goes, no, I'm good. Stuff like that. Or Jack talking about himself in the third person and and how he exploits himself, like everything's in the reflexes.
If you like bad 80s movies, this one fits right in.
That is true. All right. Well, I think we've talked about this enough, but we'll just go right into the unknown or interesting facts about the movie itself, Big Trouble in Little China, before we wrap it up. So first off, do you want to start us off, Jayme?
First one. It was originally written as an 1890s Western. Again, that explains maybe some of the fever dream. Gary Goldman and David Weinstein penned a script together about a cowboy in Chinatown in 1899. The Jack Burton in Goldman and Weinstein's version was an amazing gunman who could shoot the eyes out of a kite in the sky, but couldn't hit anybody in a fight. Well, I guess that also carried over.
Yep.
Veteran script director W.D. Richer, producer of The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension, came in for a rewrite, changing it to modern times and using Rosemary's Baby as a guide.
Huh?
What?
Exactly. What?
All right, we're still in fever dream territory. I believe if, like in Rosemary's Baby, you presented the foreground story in a familiar context rather than San Francisco at turn of the century, which distances the audience immediately, and just have one simple remove, the world underground, you have a much better chance of making direct contact with the audience. That's how it's like Rosemary's Baby? That is modern? Okay.
Okay.
All right. Richard wrote his version in 10 weeks. Again, fever dream. Okay.
Or a lot of cocaine. Or
it was the 80s.
Hallucinogenics. Jerry, the next one?
Next, production was rushed to beat Eddie Murphy's The Golden Child into theaters. Quote, the films have a similar theme and they both explore Chinese legend and magic. Carpenter said of the similarities between the scripts, but they develop in different ways. Golden Child is a very fine script. It has its problems, but it also has one big plus, Eddie Murphy. And during the 80s, Eddie Murphy was a pretty big star.
Yeah.
And it'll be hard to pull off that script, but if they do, it could be a wonderful movie. Carpenter limited his prep to 12 weeks. Again, probably explains it for Jayme. So that if Trouble could open in July, 5 months before Eddie Murphy's movie, and he said, if Big Trouble were released at the same time as The Golden Child, we would get killed at the box office because audiences love Eddie Murphy. Both movies were critically panned at the time of their release, but The Golden Child made almost $80 million, while Big Trouble drummed up just $11 million. But today, Big Trouble is the more highly regarded film.
I'm not watching The Golden Child.
You never saw The Golden Child?
No.
Oh, actually, it's not a bad movie.
Says you two, who had me watch this movie.
In comparison to this movie, as far as entertainment and everything, it is a more entertaining film. And story-wise, this is more subjected more to what I think of as goofy, funny fantasy with the martial arts involved. So that's the only reason why I was just like, okay, we'll do this. And when Jerry brought it up, I was like, let's get Jayme on this. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I didn't know this was a John Carpenter movie until I started watching. I was like, John Carpenter, I'm like, oh, okay, this is going to be good.
Wah, wah. You should have chose The Prince of Darkness. At least it's more horror themed. All right, next up. Carpenter had a rare moment when he lost his cool. A special effects coordinator got yelled at by Carpenter after one of the squibs in the wall went off much sooner than expected. Russell, who had worked with Carpenter before in Elvis in 1979, Escape from New York in 1981, and The Thing in 1982, said it was one of the few times he ever saw Carpenter get upset on film and on set. Yeah, I believe that too, because he seems such a passive kind of person, and he's very passionate about his work, but it must have been a bad time. Plus all the stuff he had to go through during this time, because he had to do those 3 films for, and I've been looking for the article. It was in Starlog and Fangoria, and the reason why they did the 3 movies he had to do, because he was looking for a big budget film. But we'll figure that out once we get to Prince of Darkness, because we already covered They Live. Now we already did Big Trouble. We just got to go.
We got to complete the set.
Got to complete the set. All right, now Jerry.
Yeah, Kim Cattrall was burning the candle at both ends. She left the set at 4:30 p.m. each day and then performed in a production of Anton Chekhov's Three Sisters at the local theater. Cattrall remembers having to explain to studio bosses who Chekhov was. My film career subsidized my theater career, she said. If only I did theater, I would have to waitress, and I didn't want to waitress.
It's fair. Not all of the actors felt safe. When Jack and Wang were almost run over by the Lords of Death, well, of course they were almost run over. They couldn't see with those glasses on. Carpenter shot the scene backwards, with the actors performing in reverse. This was done not to confuse the actors, but for safety reasons. That whole set with the mouth coming down on the steps of the escalator, it was very dangerous, Hong revealed. It was a very narrow escalator, and I was on lifts, 12-inch lifts. All of a sudden, John said, we don't have time. We've got to do this right away. I said, can't you get a stuntman? Get George Chang. He's my stuntman. He said, no, you just got to step in. So with that long robe, I tried to put it over the lifts, and when I stepped on just the part before you go down the real escalator, I said, oh my God, this is going to be my last scene. And it looked like I was fierce, but I was trembling. That's the way it was. Everything had to be real.
Next up, it was a dream come true for Peter Kwong to get to have long hair. I would love to have that hair. Damn. That's one thing I'm jealous. That hair was amazing. All right, Peter Kwong cited his character's long hair as one of the best parts of making Big Trouble in Little China. Oh, same here. That was beautiful.
It was.
Yeah. Even though, according to the actor, I had to sit in 3 hours of makeup every day just to get in and out of the $3,000 wig. Wow. That
was in the 80s.
That was in the 80s. But if you look at him, he was amazing looking. I would love to have that hair. Damn, I love that hair. Everybody have no hair.
The studio demanded that the beginning of the film be changed. Barry Diller felt that Jack Burton wasn't heroic enough, so after production wrap, Carpenter went back and shot an introductory scene where Egg Shen says Jack is a courageous man. Had Diller not said anything, the film would have begun with Jack driving. Carpenter didn't necessarily want Burton to be seen as the hero. He wanted both leads to be considered the film's heroes. Fair enough.
Yeah. Carpenter and his band sang the title song. Carpenter and his USC Film School friends, Tommy Lee Wallace and Nick Castle, performed the film's title song as the Coupe de Villes.
Yep. Big Trouble in Little China. Like I said, listeners, there'll be a link in the show notes below of the podcast as well as on YouTube, so you could easily click it. And it's pretty cool. It's a fun, typical mid-80s romp style. And the fact that you do get Nick Castle, the Shape from Halloween, as well as Tommy Lee Wallace, who we all know from, Jayme?
I'm blanking. I do recognize the name.
Halloween 3.
Ah.
You covered it on.
Okay.
We watched it in the 80s.
In my defense, my son woke up 4 times last night, so I'm running on very little sleep.
Okay, sorry about that.
I'm like, wait, I know. As I read it, I'm like, I know that name. I just could not place it.
He was also in Creepshow as well, too. He was the father in the very beginning that took the comic book away from the kid.
I love that movie.
Convention friend to those who go to conventions. If you go, same thing with Nick Castle. And one of the movies that I want to cover in the near future that a lot of people don't remember, but he also directed, was called The Last Starfighter. So Nick Castle, who is the Shape and friend of John Carpenter and played Michael Myers, did a cool Disney-esque kind of movie called The Last Starfighter. And it was one of the first real movies to use digital animations back in the early 80s.
Mm-hmm.
All right, next up, Kurt Russell was led to believe it would be the biggest movie of 1986.
Maybe if he acted better.
Russell had never before or since been asked by so many members of the press what it was like to be in the biggest movie of the year than when he was promoting Big Trouble in Little China. After the test screenings went really well, Russell said, kept waiting to see ads and things that just didn't happen.
Yeah,
Who are in this test screenings?
John Carpenter's family.
And Kurt Russell's family.
But I don't know how well it would have done against. Does anyone else know what else came out in 86?
I forgot what you let us know, Jerry. You looked already.
Aliens.
Oh.
Could have been Aliens.
Yeah,
No.
obviously. No. Big one. We covered that here.
Mm-hmm.
On Adrenaline Cinema Podcast. I think was it Wendy and Kelly and myself, I think. But yeah, that was a hard year.
Mm-hmm. It was a big film too. So.
Yeah, it was.
Next, The Rock wants to remake this film with Carpenter. Carpenter said he's ambivalent about the idea. New movie or not, there's been a comic book series that picks up from where the movie ended. And if you can find it, there was a Big Trouble in Little China video game released in 1986. A secret screen on the DVD contains images from it.
Interesting.
I kind of want to read the comic book because I want to know if it explains all the monsters.
I'm sure you can find them online.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Comixology or something. You don't want to really spend all that money on looking for older comics that are out there.
No, I'm sure somebody scanned it and put it somewhere.
Yeah, it's on PDF or, Adobe Reader.
Jackie Chan was Carpenter's first choice to play Wang Chi, but producer Lawrence Gordon was against it, fearing Chan's English wasn't good enough after seeing him in other performances. Carpenter wanted Chan after seeing him in Police Story from 1985. Chan declined, and Dennis Dunn was cast instead.
But Dennis actually was really good, though.
Yeah.
I really did like him as Wang Chi.
A little overacting, but...
We do get to see his other acting chops and humor in The Prince of Darkness, too, because if you think about it with these three movies, They Live, Big Trouble in Little China, and The Prince of Darkness, he used a lot of the same cast for each three of these films. So he kept these actors in work. So... yeah, I loved him in Prince of Darkness because he's got this humorous side about him. And he makes this one comment, and I say it, I just laugh at it because only an Asian person or a Chinese person could say it to another person. It's like, you could pass for Asian. Meanwhile, saying it to an Asian or a Chinese woman. And she just looks at him, rolls her eyes, and walks off. And he goes, oh, really? Come on. In the movie, but we will do that at a certain point. Prince of Darkness is next on the list, hopefully, within the coming year. I look forward to doing that one. But, well, that's it with the unknown or interesting facts about Big Trouble in Little China. Now we're going to move on to what a lot of people like to talk about when they refer to this movie. I'm sure our friend Jerry and Jayme and I's friend Ben Beck will probably utilize certain quotes from this movie as well, because it's one of those movies that are quotable. So let's go into quotes. So, Jayme, do you have any memorable quotes that you want to bring up that you liked?
Don't look, Jack. I already did. Well, don't look. Yeah, that was, I don't know, that cracked me up. And then I actually liked Only a Dream Can Kill a Dream. I thought that was a good quote.
Jared?
Okay, this is, again, going back to the budget version of John Wayne. He says, okay, you people sit tight, hold the fort, and keep the home fires burning. And if we're not back by dawn, call the president. Jamie's rolling her eyes. I love it. Okay, and then this is kind of Lopan's like musing. He says, when Wang and Jack are stuck or tied to the wheelchairs, Lopan in his like shriveled form rolls up in his wheelchair and stating, my problem is this place. This place is my tomb. I'm buried here. A young man, a king, a warrior is entombed in this old man's crippled body. And all I need is a woman, Mr. Burton. A special kind of woman with dragon green eyes to make me whole again. Young again.
I don't know why he didn't go to Ireland earlier.
Yeah.
One for me would be just Wang Chi saying right to Jack going, you ready, Jack? And he goes, I was born ready. Kind of like a typical John Wayne-esque attitude that Jack would do. And there was a couple of things that he had stated throughout the movie, which makes me laugh too. It's like, I'm a reasonable guy, but just experienced some very unreasonable things.
Well, and I like the Egg's statements, like they're getting out of there, and when he does his little rope escape thing, which the physics of that don't work out well because I don't know how he can hold people up with just himself and in his hand. And he says, "How'd you get up there?" It's like, wasn't easy.
That did crack me up.
Yeah, and
it's like 20 feet up or whatever.
Of all things, too, you got a crossbow with a winch on it that goes in there, but your hand is holding it, so your hand is holding all the weight of that person that's coming up. It looked a little bit too easy for me for that.
I don't know if it bolted into the ceiling. I could see that.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, but I'd say physics takes a holiday here. So.
It does. It does.
Like the getting off of the wheelchair when it almost fell into the pit. Stopped at the perfect spot, and then he could just muscle it right back up there, right way. Yeah.
Yeah, his center of gravity was over the edge. He was gone.
That is true. The next one I like is what Wang Chi says. A brave man likes the feel of nature on his face, Jack. And Egg Shen goes, yeah, and a wise man has enough sense to get in and out of the rain. Some of the good ones, like Egg Shen actually has some cool, like, it's like, especially it's like, I think it was like, it's kind of paraphrasing of what was going on, but Egg was talking to them about the whole thing about Lopan, their journey, what's in there in that little Gorkin.
The little gourd.
Yeah. It's like, oh, I have all this. He goes, all right, Egg, what's in there? He goes, all the blah blah blah, and he goes, but that's not the best of it. You ready? like a little. It's like, you ready? He's like, oh, excited about it. It's like, I'm gonna tell you, Jack, this is what's going on.
And this is kind of a little aside to this. I did like Egg's tour bus. Did you see what was written on the side?
No, Pork Chop Express, but
no. That's Jack's truck.
Yeah,
it had Egg Foo Young Tours.
So I've learned a fun fact about that tour bus.
Okay.
It was from I think Yosemite National Park, and then it was in this movie, and then it went back to Yosemite, and it like transports people to and from. If it's not Yosemite, it's one of the national parks, but it drives people around at one of the national parks.
Well, there is a redwood, like a redwood park on the north end of across the bay from San Francisco in like the Sausalito area.
Yeah, I don't think it was that one. I think it was like a further out one.
Further out, okay.
Yeah, like it was just like weird that it showed up there for the movie and then
retired back at the
retired back.
Well, one thing that we have to love about this is the long-liners that Jack loves to talk about. So I have one here. This is at the very end of the movie. It's his little speech as he's on the CB talking to his people. When some wild-eyed 8-foot maniac grabs your neck, taps the back of your favorite head up against the barroom wall, and he looks crooked in the eye and he asks, "Have you paid your dues?" You just stare that big sucker right back in the eye, and you remember what old Jack Burton always says at the time. "Have you paid your dues, Jack?" "Yes, sir. The check is in the mail." A lot of paraphrasing, but it's like the bravado that he has and how he uses it. And then the last one I would have to say is it's like, just remember what old Jack Burton does when the earth quakes, the poison arrows fall from the sky, and the pillars of heaven shake. Yeah, Jack Burton just looks at that big old storm right square in the eye and says, "Give me your best shot, pal. I could take it."
Yeah, when you've got an army of people behind you. I don't see you doing anything on your own. You did the least amount of work, dude.
Yeah. Well, like I said, he shot in the air.
And
while everybody was rushing towards Lopan and everybody else, and he knocks himself unconscious. Then during the battle, he has to deal with somebody jumping on top of him, and he has to use his boot knife and kick it up to stab the guy. And now he's got a dead body. He's got to maneuver it over to the side. And he lost all the time within the battle. Darn it. Oh,
that's
if you recall that.
I do.
Okay.
Are you okay, Jayme?
I'm okay. I'm not going to rewatch this movie though.
Okay.
I'm sure. Yeah. All right. All right. Well, Jerry, I think we're at that moment because we're coming towards the end of the podcast. But this is the fun part that you like to have too. Is
the ratings or the guilty pleasures?
We could go to ratings first.
For me, I rate this one a 9, just for the sheer comedic value.
Jayme should probably give it a 3.
That's exactly what I was going to pick.
Yeah,
maybe 3.5.
Yeah, she gave me this look like, what the hell are you talking about?
9.
Just for sure comedic value. Quality, probably a 4.
I don't know that's even funny enough for a 9.
With me, I'm a huge Carpenter fan, but this was not the best of what his work that was out there. But I have to give it overall at least a 5.5. And that's including humor. But
I'll accept a 5.5.
Yeah, but I don't really like to rate everything lately, but when Jared brings it up to give it a rating, I'll do so. And I think by far that is probably the lowest I've ever rated anything on this podcast.
Well, generally, you pick good movies that people like.
Well, I was in agreement with Jerry to cover this, and then I realized because I haven't seen it in a while, even though I do own it on Blu-ray, DVD, and digital. All right. Well, those are our ratings. So you tell us your ratings, listeners. If you begrudgingly watch this before you listen to the podcast, please don't blame us. You were already forewarned because you could have easily spoiled yourself. Listen to the podcast and then watch the movie and go, okay, for a lark, for fun, I'm going to watch this. So.
Yeah, it's not like there's a dramatic twist at the end of this movie.
Yeah. And there was
for the
no
random
sequel.
monster that shows up for no good reason.
For the good puns, you could do it. But next up would be guilty pleasure movies, or movies that you would just recommend to people that other people wouldn't really watch normally because they're off their radar. So, Jayme, do you have anything like that?
All right, this is going to fall under the guilty pleasure, not the recommend movie category.
Okay. All right.
My brother and I have been scouring the depths of Amazon Prime for all of the shark movies. The B.
Sharknado?
Worse.
Sharktopus?
Yeah, closer to Sharktopus. Noah's Shark is terrible. He started with that one. He was like, hey, I need you to watch this movie. I was like, is it good? And he's like, no, it falls under the category of, hey, this smells bad. I need you to smell it too. So after that, we, between Amazon suggesting stuff and us just looking for stuff, we found a bunch of movies. But for some reason, Sharks of the Corn has been my favorite.
Oh, that just came out recently, didn't it?
I don't know.
I saw it. Actually, it just came up on Tubi or whatever I was on recently, or maybe it was Pluto TV.
It's not good, but it's so ridiculous. It's fun, like sharks swimming through a cornfield.
How did their fins work in that?
Oh man,
it's a B movie. The act, it maybe even a D movie. But for some reason, I really enjoyed watching it.
Okay, and it's by the affirmed writer Stephen Kang.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Nobody you know is in it, but I had a lot of fun with it. I don't necessarily recommend that you watched it, but if you need something on in the background while you fold laundry and you need some giggles,
That's your film?
that's my film. That's what I'm going with. Or maybe I'm just getting back at people for you guys making me watch this movie.
Okay. For me,
Mm-hmm.
I have one from 2012. It is an early Michael B. Jordan movie. Also has Michael Kelly and Dane DeHaan. And Dane DeHaan is he did what was it? In one of the Spider-Man movies, he played the Green Goblin.
Yep.
But this one is a found footage type film.
Oh,
About three teenagers who are apparently gifted the power of telekinesis in a I half recommend, half warn movie. This one is Chronicle.
yeah, Chronicle is really good for its time. I enjoyed that movie. It's actually one of the few movies I have on my Apple TV. And it's something that I wanted to bring up on Panels to Pixels podcast because it's not based off a comic. It's like an original idea. But it falls in that category of like they get superpowers from this. And I really think it's a really good movie. A lot of people don't know much of it too. But yeah, Dane DeHaan, that was where I got to know who he was before he actually was through the Never, which was a Metallica movie based on a concert. And he was the antagonist he was like literally like a roadie in that movie. But, and then he wound up doing Amazing Spider-Man 2, I think it was.
I think so, yeah. Yeah, but one thing I do like about this is like it would save on tree trimmers because you can just send the saw, you can work with the saw up there. Net you huge money in Vegas if you know how to run some dice.
I could use the tree trimmer.
Yeah, you can use a tree trimmer, yeah. and then it'll save you money on flights. You get to travel.
I'm down for that as well.
Well, for me, I think I might have mentioned this a long time ago in an earlier podcast, but I'm going to use it because it fits perfectly with what the full things that Jerry has in his background, which if you look at it, it's Thunder with his head supersized, with the steam coming out of his ears, his nostrils flaring, his eyes is bulging out. The movie Riki Oh, The Story of Riki from 1991. It's an Asian martial arts kind of movie, and it's literally about a guy. I'll give you the full synopsis. They call it an martial arts splatter film back in the day. So Riki Oh Wong, a young man who has superhuman power and fighting abilities, originally known as in English as Story of Riki. Later releases were sold under the title of Riki Oh, The Story of Riki. Literally, he gets imprisoned. And he's stuck in prison, but he has to deal with all these people that are attacking him, kind of like prison life. Throughout the whole prison sentence, he winds up killing these people. We talked about the guy exploding when we talk about Thunder. There's a scene in that where you do see a guy explode, just like he did, where you see, like I said, the salad falling out in the hallway. Very similar to that. Pulling of intestines out.
Oh.
Bodies, like it's the most extreme of extreme movies that are out there. And I thought it was interesting. It was done in Japan. I have it on DVD. You can't find it really anywhere, especially with subtitles now. So you have to go to a convention to actually find this. And it was deemed so graphic that people just don't have it anywhere. And I'm pretty sure if you go online to certain like third-party apps, like I already spoke about it with Pluto TV, Tubi, and stuff like that. They have the movie there to play probably. They started there was a movie that came out years later with Tony Todd. I'm trying to find it now. I should have looked for it before. Okay. The movie is literally loosely based on this. Actually, I knew one of the actresses that were in the movie too, because it's when they do this particular version of the movie, not Riki Oh, but this movie called Shadow Dead Riot. It was based loosely on Riki Oh, just the same way. But they put demons, zombies, everything else. Tony Todd's in it because he plays one of the character, like the dead character that comes back and possesses a woman. And he's related to the one that comes into the prison. But Shadow Dead Riot, that came out in, I'm forgetting the year. It was early 2000s. But my friend Aaron Brown was in that movie. But it's to the same degree of lunacy within this prison, and especially with the martial arts. So my suggestion, Riki Oh, The Story of Riki, or if you want, go watch Shadow Dead Riot if you really want to get your exploitation kind of movies going on the way, because that's literally what they are. They're exploitations. But it was more exploitation for the violence, the extreme graphic or gutting of people too. Because like I said, with Thunder in the movie Big Trouble in Little China, somebody literally explodes by somebody punching them, or you see somebody's hand go through somebody's head and the face just caves in and explodes out. If you're talking about graphicness, that's one of those kind of movies. But when I think of Big Trouble in Little China with that whole Thunder thing, I just think of this movie. So Riki Oh, The Legend of Riki, or The Story of Riki, if you could find it, 1991, I believe. Or if you could easily find Shadow Dead Riot as well. It's a more of American modern take on it as well. So that's mine to give out there.
Nice.
But other than that, we're at the very end, and this is where can listeners hear you?
Nowhere.
Oh, come on, Jayme. They can hear you somewhere.
All of the TV shows I podcast on are currently hopefully filming. None are actually airing, so nowhere.
Well, Invincible is scheduled to come out towards the end of the year, so we know
it was
that
supposed to come out a lot earlier than that, and it didn't.
No delays and everything else, but they did finish principal, all the photography and everything else. Everything else is in post-production. So supposedly it's still out there, but with the writer strike, who knows? It might be delayed again.
Exactly.
But
So,
we know that's towards the
technically,
end.
I do Panels and Pixels with Mark, and we also on the Pirate Core Entertainment Network, and then we also do Sandman Cast on the Podcastica Network.
Yep.
And that did start filming season 2. I've seen some stills from that.
Yes, they have. And Neil Gaiman was part of that, and they have put out promotional stuff. So it is in process. It is filming. It's not like it's not coming back. Honestly, with the whole writer strike, we still need material to come out anyway. So they can't deny us that.
But if you're in our little group of Zed Heads, I'm going to do the Zed Head show this week with Lucy and Jason.
Awesome. So that's also something that we highly recommend too. Would be if you go to podcastica.com, that's where you could actually find Sandman Cast that Jayme had mentioned that we covered, which was Sandman that was on Netflix.
Such a good show. Better comic book.
Yes. So we will be covering season 2 when that comes out. Invincible, when that does come out, we'll do that on Panels to Pixels podcast, which is on the Pirate Core Entertainment Network, which I have yet still to put on the website. But eventually you guys will, but it's easily found. But yeah, and then you were on Watched It in the 80s with Damien as well.
Yep.
And then, and as with Podcastica, Jason Kabasi, who got me into actually podcasting, he has his own Patreon. That's how I know Jayme. That's how I know Jerry. And that's how we come to be. And then we just have fun doing these podcasts. So if you are interested and you're a fan of
pop culture,
Strange Indeed podcast, Run for Your Lives podcast, Yellow Jackets WTF, if you follow those, all you have to go, and if you want to be involved with the whole network of friends that we have here, we're all on there. And that's through Jason Kabasi's Patreon, which would be patreon.com/Jason Kabasi. So just a little plug out there for Jason, for people to get to know too. So and there's a bunch of threads you could jump onto, and it's very, very popular, and there's a lot of traffic on there too, and messenger threads too, everybody.
Yeah.
So if you like to get your fandom on and talk and gather around with a bunch of friends, occasionally we play games, we have monthly call-in shows, stuff like that, just join the Zed Heads, which would be patreon.com/Jason Kabasi.
Oh, and occasionally I've been on Ben's Wilhelm podcast.
Correct. Jerry?
Well, aside from the other bazillion episodes of Adrenaline I've been on, so I've been on a few of those. We did last movie we did was we did King Kong recently, and we also did
The Thing 2011.
Yeah, 2011 version of The Thing.
Yep.
Yeah, which is, I believe, was just released.
Yep.
Then I've also been on Watched It in the 80s. I did a few movies with Damien. And one episode of Run for Your Lives, which was pretty good. I had fun doing that. And I do the 1923 cast with Alex. We did the first season, and the second season is supposed to be coming out, I want to say next January, I'm thinking. So hopefully. So from when we'll be covering that one week to week as it comes out.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and with me, obviously, you could hear me here right on Adrenaline Cinema Podcast, as always. Hopefully, we'll get a couple of more episodes out, because right now it's the beginning of July. So we're doing this on July 3rd. I'm hoping that Jeff could come on and we could do Death Trap, which we've been talking about. I have plans for doing a couple of other films that I've been talking to people about. But you could also hear me regularly on Panels to Pixels podcast. We've been on that schedule of getting you your episodes weekly, because as we're covering, obviously, Disney Plus's Secret Invasion. So that's a weekly episode. It's 6 episodes total, but we're doing them weekly as they come out. So episode 2 came out this week. You'll probably get this at the end of the week itself. But yeah, you could hear me there. We already did our Flash 2023 review. And after Secret Invasion, we'll be back to our regularly slated reviews of movies that we haven't even touched on. And if you have any suggestions, always contact us there. That would be the best. And then for you to submit any feedback, now they mentioned contact, all you could easily do for this particular podcast is go to our Facebook page, which would be facebook.com/AdrenalineCinemaPodcast. There you will find images of the topics that we're going to cover and literally me stating, hey, we're recording at this point. And then for this particular movie or event, leave your comments below the image. And that's all you have to do is just, follow the Facebook page and then just leave your comments down below. If you don't feel like you want to do that and you want to just email us, you could easily email us at AdrenalineCinemaPodcast@gmail.com. There you could just leave a regular texted out email like anybody else. We'll read it on the podcast if you have any thoughts, and we'll comment. If you feel like you don't want to even be bothered writing anything, because a lot of people don't want to write, just record yourself and just send it as an attachment to the email. And then, like I said, just send it as an attachment to AdrenalineCinemaPodcast@gmail.com, and we'll play it and you could be part of the podcast. And, that's the best way to get us any kind of feedback. We are on Instagram as well as Twitter. I try not to put it as too much, but I think I recently put something on Instagram and it just blew up like crazy. But that had to do with, of all things, The Thing 2011. And people liked it. Please send comments if you listen to it, because I did leave the attachment. But best thing for us, for you as listeners, if you want other people to listen to us, word of mouth is the best way. So tell a friend, and they'll tell a friend, and they'll tell a friend, and so on and so on. It sounds like an old commercial in the 80s. But anyway, you could easily, for those apps that we are on, we can be found on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, any podcast player of choice. But the best way you could actually support us in any way would be giving us a rating or review on Apple Podcasts, because apparently that's the premier podcast player of choice, and a lot of people have Apple products. So do so if you can. But other than that, that is all. And that was our coverage. I got to thank Jayme for suffering through with us tonight as we talked about Big Trouble in Little China.
Anything for you guys.
She'll be back on something that she likes. So that's but and I got to thank Jerry for recommending it. Obviously, this is something that we're going to continue on because of my love for John Carpenter films. So thanks, Jerry, for recommending this. Now that we have this,
Yeah,
out of
thanks,
the way.
Jerry.
You're welcome.
But thank everybody for listening. I'm Mark,
I'm Jayme.
And I'm Jerry.
and this was Adrenaline Cinema Podcast. Everybody, take it easy out there.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.